Hello and welcome everybody, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into how Fortnite is poised to make 3 billion by the end of 2018. And the funny thing is, if I told people last year that Fortnite was going to be the biggest game in the industry, a year ago, everybody would be laughing. But we fast forward a year and a half forward into time, and it's definitely poised to not only break records, but to put things in context, it took GTA 5 roughly 5 years to hit $6 billion in revenue total sales, and Fortnite is hitting roughly about 3.1 to 3.8 by my estimates by the end of 2018, in only a year and a half. So that let that sink in for a little bit. Now you're probably saying, where are you getting all this data from? So let's first, delve into what I like to call financial modeling and my good, bad baseline method for doing forecasting. And my background is as a financial analyst and accountant, so I have about 10 years experience in doing these type of financial framework. But really, a lot of these source and data is technically out there for anybody to really pull and coalesce and pull that data together and map it out. But it really takes a financial analyst or somebody in the economic field to really put that data together and actually create a cohesive picture. A lot of these data I'm pulling from Superdata, Statista, as well as a few other sites, as well as publication, news articles, things like that, to actually get tangible data. And from there, I could create like a framework to then map out what I like to call financial modeling, to kind of see exactly where I expect or forecast that Fortnite revenue will go by this year. And for the most part, a lot of these estimates are fairly accurate because they're released through known statistical sites, as I mentioned before, and they're pretty reasonably close to what we actually expect Fortnite. It could be more, it could be less, but that's why we have these estimates, because we're only doing estimates based on aggregate data that we're able to pull, and then add math to that to kind of scale up and scale down as we see growth within the player count and purchase habits or purchase behavior within Fortnite. And what's interesting enough is that, as you see Fortnite growth begins to slow down, they're shifting away from publishing hard numbers in terms of total sales and actually highlight percentage growth month over month. So, that's a nice technique to kind of shift away from, actually going to cold hard actual dollar, and also to kind of change the conversation in terms of monthly retention and actually revenue retention month over month, particularly as we head into the competition season. I don't really expect Fortnite to really publish any full data per se in terms of actual dollar amount, especially with Red Dead Redemption and Blackout coming out. Those are going to take some sizable bite out of Fortnite, but and that's why I have it mapped out later on in terms of how much I expect that bite or percentage of bite to be. But before we could actually jump into the meat and potatoes, I definitely want to go through the financial history of Fortnite. And this is important because I've seen a lot of videos online where they do a breakdown of what Fortnite did, how where pretty much breaking out exactly where it started from, being Save the World, until where they are now. One thing to factor in is that a lot of those are qualitative analysis, in that they actually go over just like what exactly decisions were being made, but they didn't apply any mathematics to it. They didn't put any financial numbers to it. The financial numbers were published here and there, like how much it made in like February, how much it made in like March, April, stuff like that. But I haven't seen a video that actually pulled all the financial data together from Fortnite's beginning up until now. And that's what this video is really aimed at. It's for those people that want the math behind those qualitative decisions, and that's referred to as quantitative analysis. So in essence, a lot of these videos were qualitative in nature without any quantitative data, and my video will provide the quantitative data based on information that I've pulled together from all over the web to actually apply to math. So let's hop right in, and I'll show you guys visually on my screen the exact spreadsheet I used to actually map it out, and I'll show you just like one of the page, which kind of highlights a summary of exactly what we're going to be reviewing. Now you can see in this chart right here, I did an estimate in terms of how much Fortnite actually made when they first came out, and Fortnite didn't exactly give like a huge hoorah in terms of when they really saved the world. The biggest thing I saw article-wise was that they had like 500,000 in sales and pre-order, and at the time that was like maybe $39 for the founders pack. Which if you do the math in that, 500,000 times $39.99 for the Founders Pack. That gives you roughly about $19 million for its release in July 2017. From there, we could only hypothesize that sales had declined because they did not release any information about sales after July. Not until they just introduced the whole Battle Royale. And with that, it is my belief that it was actually having a negative percentage growth month over month from its release up until it released the Battle Royale mode. So from that, I actually put in a percentage to factor in that decrease, and I estimated that it roughly was about 9 million. Because usually when a game is released, the next month, sales usually take a pretty sharp dip, roughly about 50%, maybe more, give or take. So you see, it had like an estimate of 19 million. I put it at like half of that, maybe a little bit more than half, since it wasn't really a big splash and it didn't really retain a lot of their audience. I feel like in the first, especially in the second month. So I put it at 9 million for the second month in August 2017. From there, we hop on to September, which again, I suspect that's even further decline, with only really the hardcore fans that really like Save the World, continuously playing. And so I put a further decline again in for a 7 million estimate, 7.9 million estimate. But they also, that's when they also announced that they're going to be doing the Battle Royale, which is a very smart move on their part. I don't need to go over that. I don't need to go over that exactly because a lot of people have already covered that. But you can see that decision for them to change, add the Battle Royale mode, and since it was already free, so it's already accessible, and it was already greatly optimized for having 7 years of development, that definitely would have really resulted in an uptick in percentage growth over growth. So I estimated roughly about 13 million. And if you're wondering why I'm using these numbers, is because I'm able to backtrack that Fortnite as of May 2018 has made 1 point something billion. So I'm mapping these numbers as it fits within the overall framework of how much Fortnite made as of May 2018, which, that we have hard data that Fortnite made 1 billion as of May. That's roughly what has been going around. And that information is all on the web. So we're at 13 million for October, which is the month after they released the Battle Royale in September 2017. Then November, we see another uptick because it's starting to get popular, it's starting to get trendy. A lot of people are starting to actually like this Battle Royale, and it's much more optimized and much more user-friendly than PUBG, unfortunately. So I'm estimating that roughly about 55 million, give or take, more, maybe less, for December. Then from there we bump into January, which is when it starts. Well, actually, I'm sorry, 55 mil for November is what I'm at. And then we actually bump into December, which is when, again, holiday season, mobile game, it's definitely help. Well, it actually wasn't released on mobile then, but it's definitely helping that it's free to access, so it makes it easier for people to access and play it during holidays. So we definitely see another uptick. So I'm putting it at roughly about 86 million for December 2017. And then, by then, it's starting to creep up on PUBG's numbers, not just, on PC, but on overall, and then for January, it had another big growth. So we're putting it at 105. And then for February is when Fortnite being released until March. We're at an estimate at 1.2 billion already, cumulatively speaking. Cumulative, estimate in terms of total sales, total revenue, is what we're at. So they've technically already made over 1.2 billion, more or less. Depending on, I'm estimating that it's probably higher. Because we're not factoring other. There might be other revenue source outside of just game source. Like apparels, clothing, things like that. Because that's something that's to factor into. That's pretty big. Now, so we're at 1.2 billion. Now, this is where financial modeling comes into play, because I have to then use this information to extrapolate based on a percentage, a good, bad, and baseline scenario in terms of how, how much, Fortnite could potentially grow for the remainder of the year. Now, we do have a couple of data sources to help us out. We know that for the month of July, Fortnite had a 2% growth month over month from the previous month. So July was 2% higher than June. And it was estimated that June was within the same ballpark as 318 million from May. So with my good scenario analysis, we're going to put it that and we're going to go through this in more detail, for each of the scenarios as to how I'm getting to this number. But we can see from this trajectory and this growth pattern that it technically is poised to hit 3 billion roughly either October, November, or December, cumulatively speaking, of this year. Depending on how well they do with Season 6 release, which is due to release in a couple of days, they could probably hit it sooner. I mean, if Season 6 is really good and it really galvanizes the fan base and really just like, motivates people to want to buy awesome skins, which by the way, skins are their highest selling in item game, then they could hit that sooner rather than later. Now, for my good, bad, and baseline, the numbers highlighted in yellow are estimates, while the others are more tangible data. Now, factor in that. Let's start with a good scenario analysis. Now, we are estimating that we know that 2% growth for July 2018 based on data. So I'm estimating that a 5% growth for the month of June, month over month from the previous month of May. So with 318 million for May, confirmed estimate, we're going to add a 5% growth to that, which will put it at roughly about 333 million for the month of June. Factor in a 2% growth, which was confirmed or estimated confirmed by Superdata, that is probably puts Fortnite at 342 million for the month of July. I'm going to keep it conservative for the good choice and say it's going to be a 2% growth again for August, because I don't predict any double-digit growth again, because their revenue is so high right now. It's going to be hard to have double-digit percentage growth, but even small percentage of a large number is still a pretty big increase in sales. So we're going to keep it 2% for August, which will put it at 349. I'm actually going to put it at 1% growth for September for the good scenario, only because I noticed that some people are complaining about Fortnite not being as popular as it used to be, and then a lot of streamers are complaining about the skirmish not being done. Not to mention the Friday Fortnite kind of fell off in replacement of Summer Skirmish, which has been subpar. Even though it is more competitive because there's more competitive players, it's not done very well. It's laggy, poorly optimized, and even recently Ninja was complaining about it needs to be better optimized on Twitter. So that's something to factor in. So all those factors could probably have slowed it down a little bit further, than normal. So I'm putting only a 1% growth for the month of September. Now, September does see the release of Season 6 for September 27th, but that's only a couple days in, so I'm not sure if the last 4 or 5 days will really boost it, but I am going to put a positive growth, of course, of 1%. So we're putting it at 352 million for September. Then I feel like with the release of Season 6 before Red Dead Redemption, that gives it Season 6 a whole almost month to kind of galvanize their base, and people buy new skins, new emotes, just kind of put more videos, etc., all other stuff. So I expect that is going to probably be a 5% growth for the month of October, which is going to put it around 370, and then I'm going to say a 7% growth for the month of November, because I'm expecting that there's going to be some kind of big event in November. And these are just factors I'm looking at, their calendar, their schedules, things like that, to kind of estimate what could propel them to grow more, grow percentage-wise positively. Because at the end of the day, in order for a company to grow positively, there needs to be a qualitative action behind it that is going to propel it to grow, more. So if they don't do anything, of course, it's going to not grow. So they're always making qualitative decisions that's going to impact them quantitatively. So with that said, I'm estimating 7% growth. Plus, it's also holidays, so people might be giving Thanksgiving gift, handheld mobiles, etc. So 7% growth, 396 mil for November, and then for December, one thing people are underestimating is the holiday season, particularly gift given for handheld and mobile devices, which Fortnite is really big on, as well as Fortnite, was not released in China. So my estimates as of May, which is all, data pulled online, estimates for those were without it being released for Android, not available in China, and also not yet available in Switch. So since that, my estimates have also factored in it being released for those three variables: China, Android, and Switch. So with those three, I do expect that it's going to bump or keep or stabilize Fortnite's profit or revenue. And revenue is different from profit, because profit is how much money you have left after expenses, so revenue. So I do expect those three factors of those three variables will stabilize Fortnite's revenue. So we're looking at that right now. For 2018, we're gonna be at roughly, for 2018 alone, with a good scenario analysis, it's gonna be about 3.6 bill. Just for 2018 alone. If we factor in, 2017 revenue and 2018 to get the cumulative, total, it'd be about 3.8, give or take. And that's something to really really keep in mind is that regardless of what happens, cumulatively, Fortnite is definitely on track to hit 3 billion this year. And you're going to see that even more evident when I do a bad scenario, which is next. Now, with any financial modeling, you always want to factor in a bad scenario in terms of your product doesn't sell as much as you thought it would, or competition infringes upon your battle royale space and kind of takes away some of your player base, which that's revenue walking out the door. So with my bad scenario analysis, we're going to look at negative percentage growth month over month, and we do know that is negative percentage growth would have to happen after July. And the reason why is because we know that it's been estimated that July was a positive percentage increase in revenue. So anything subsequent to that, we'll put all of. So subsequent to July's increase, we're estimating that August will have a negative 2% growth, which will put it at about 335 mil for August. September, negative 5%, so it's slowly going down, 318 mil. Then for October, I'm going to put it at negative 10%. And the reason why I'm putting negative 10% is because Red Dead and Blackout is coming out of that month. So we're going to put it at 286 mil estimate. And then for November, again, I'm putting a further decrease because Fallout 76, other games coming out, Battlefield 5, Battle Royale coming out too. So we're going to put it at an estimate of 243 mil. And then I'm going to put it at December for a negative 20%. Which will put it at roughly about 195 mil for the month of December. Again, I'm doing all negative growth percentage month over month to see what's the lowest I could actually get this. But you'll see that even me putting in negative percentage, it's still poised to hit 3 billion alone for a 2018 revenue by itself. And that's partly because it's, as of July, it's always been growing positive percentage growth. So we know that if it's positive percentage growth, then that, that's like 7 months that it's already having a bag of just really good revenue. So it's kind of hard to kind of turn against tide and turn that, against itself, especially since this was the growth without factoring China, Android, and Switch. You factor in those three, and then on top of that, with Android, they released their own platform, Android, so they're cutting out that 30% fee from if they had released it in Google Play. So that means they have even higher revenue. So if they're able to minimize their actual revenue, or I guess their cost of accumulating that revenue or paying that fee, that increases their revenue even more. Now, I'm not sure if they're counting their revenue with that cost or without, but usually when a company says revenue, they're counting that revenue, the gross amount. So I'm estimating that they're factoring that cost within it. So I'm guessing that their estimate is the total revenue, gross, before any type of fee, expense, licenses, whatever is taken out. So with that, we could see that, roughly for the bad scenario, it's going to be at about 3.2 cumulatively, or 3.3 cumulatively by end of this year. And that's with negative percentage growth month after month from August all the way until December. So that would be like 2, 4, 5 bad months. It could have 5 bad months of negative month over month negative growth, and it will still be about 3 bill. And then we're going to do the last one, which is the baseline. Now, obviously, you've seen a good, which is like the most profitable I think it could be, which is pushing close to 4 bill, actually. And then you have the bad, which is pushing it further down to just the baseline, which even then, it's still above 3 billion cumulatively. And then, the baseline is like a happy mixture of both. So the baseline is usually the most conservative, and it's like the best baseline to kind of measure, because at the end of the day, we want to have good, projections. We also want to have bad projections, but we also want to make sure that we are grounded in the different change in environments or different change in the marketplace as a result for Battle Royale. So with that said, we're going to estimate a 1% growth for September for the baseline approach, which will put it at 352 mil for September. We're going to do a negative growth for October, negative 2%, not as big as the negative 10% in the bad scenario, but a negative 2%, which will put it at about 345. And I'm going to do a negative 3%, because again, I do think that it's going to go down. I do think Fortnite is going to have a lot of competition, cumulatively speaking, between Blackout, Red Dead, Battlefield 5, Fallout, and just all the other games that are coming out this year, within this October, November, December time slot, I feel like it is going to affect it. So I'm putting a negative 3% growth. But however, I do want to factor in that because these games have a $60 barrier to entry, I don't think it's going to affect it to the big a degree as the negative 10% and negative 15 and 20% in my bad scenario. So I'm only putting -2 and -3 for those. So we're going to be at 345, and then we're going to be at 333 mil for November. 345 for October, 333 for November. And then we're going to do a 2% increase in growth because I do think that is a good correlation between handheld device and mobile devices being given during Christmas as presents, and a lot of kids gets presents and they like Fortnite. Fortnite has completely galvanized the youth right now. They literally, there's videos about who love Fortnite, and then kids are standing up in class and dancing to Fortnite, and that's how profoundly ingrained Fortnite is in the youth culture right now. And I don't think any game is going to change that, not all at once. Maybe over in a year from now, sure. Right now, in this moment for Christmas technically is Fortnite owns Christmas. There's no other way to say it. So I feel like there's going to be a positive percentage growth in December, for the baseline scenario. So with that, we'll put it at 341 mil for December. Again, in this scenario, Fortnite ends about 3.6 or 3.5, 3.6, by the end, cumulatively by the end of 2018 in the baseline scenario. So now that we've kind of mapped out exactly all three aspects, all three scenarios, the good, bad, and the baseline for my financial modeling for Fortnite revenue, we can see that all three of them, the minimum, like even the bad one, they could have a bad 5 months and they'll still make $3 billion. They have a really good, next 5 months and they could probably be pushing $4 billion. The thing is, Fortnite doesn't release the actual numbers, so we don't know. They could already be 4 billion and we don't know. So I'm only doing my best based on the data that is out there and putting that together in a cohesive worksheet to do estimates. And that's what and the analysts do, is that they look at the market, look what's out there, pull it together and kind of estimate as to why this project is selling as much as it is, why it's not, and then they mix that with the qualitative decisions behind that to kind of better understand what decisions were made to make it so profitable. And so with that said, you can see from this extensive video research that Fortnite is a $3 billion game as of 2018. Fact is, period, done. It's not dying. It's going to be extremely long before it actually dies. And you can see from the data that a lot of people, they're saying Fortnite is dying based on their personal opinion, or they feel like it's dying because they see people complaining about it. But the thing is that people complaining about YouTube isn't going to sway the millions of people playing this game. What's going to sway people from playing this game is if Fortnite messes up. I think that's the biggest detriment to Fortnite, is that when you're so big, when you're so explosive in growth, the only way you're gonna really not be as explosive is if you do something to mess up. I mean, GTA 5 is a really great game, but a lot of people don't like their loot box system or whatever. They don't like their online system. It's like a griefing party. Like, people just on there all the time griefing, and they don't like their shark cards. So that kind of alienated some people already, and so they're like, at least Fortnite, I like that their approach to monetization is user friendly. It's not as aggressive as Take-Two, or it's not as aggressive as EA or so many others with loot boxes. So the fact that they have a very friendly game that is accessible to all and that is not greedy and has a new method of monetization, and they're able to get this much explosive growth, it's going to make it extremely hard. Those variables are making it extremely hard for people not to want to play Fortnite and not to want to buy these skins, especially when they're doing so much right now. They're releasing so much content that even if a competition does come out and take a chunk out of Fortnite, they might lose in the long run because they aren't able to provide as much update as Fortnite can, because they have so much money. And Fortnite was very smart in that they saw so much, they had so much explosive growth. They invested back in the community that got them there. $100 million in tournaments. That's a smart way to keep your base, because no other companies that they invest $100 million in their community. Like, they might invest a couple million here and there, but $100 million in 1 year. A company who's able to do that kind of tells you how much money they're really making. We're gonna throw away $100 million. But keep that in mind, So overall, I definitely wanted to kind of provide this information before season 6 is released, so that way people could see. And it's kind of funny that they're releasing season 6 a couple days before October, because in my good analysis, I estimate that they'll probably hit 3 billion in October in the good scenario, which is they are always having positive growth month after month. For each month. So that's kind of interesting that they're releasing it in September, well before, and they might release another season in December. I don't know. That'll be a good time, because if they release a season in season 7 like right before Christmas hits, that'll be like perfect timing to like capitalize on the gift giving and mobile devices, etc. But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It took me a while to compile this. As always, I wanted my video to be grounded in facts, and that's what I do as a financial analyst in the daytime, but I want to kind of provide it in a concise video that is definitely a little bit longer than the average qualitative videos that you see about, opinion pieces that you see on YouTube. But this one is grounded in actual data and estimates based on financial modeling techniques and my good, bad, and baseline method, which is a very common technique for those in the financial field. Overall, if you like this type of video, don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. For those who want to support me even more, consider supporting me on Patreon. A link of that is in the description below, but there's different tiers with different benefits. Some of that will be like even access to the data, the actual script for this video, as well as the Excel documents and charts, things like that. So for those who actually want the meat and potato, because my actual my actual script for this is about 6 pages. Yeah, 6 pages, along with the Excel spreadsheet, which is, like 6 different tabs, as you can see from the video. But overall, I appreciate you guys watching till the end. And, who is ready for Fortnite Season 6? Definitely I'm curious to see what kind of skins they're going to be releasing. I'll be doing some videos on in-game purchases and, consumer behavior for Fortnite as a whole. So stay tuned for that video as a follow-up, and I will see you guys in my next video. As always, this is Red Kojak, your friendly neighborhood analyst, and I am out.